everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. We have a packed house today, I guess. Let me just give you a brief overview as we don't have a lot of time. I'm a business consultant, speaker, author, mompreneur, I guess you want to call it. And I'm going to be talking today about the confidence factor. Literally, about 4 years ago, I was called to, in no way, shape, or form am I, empowerment or anything like that. I normally just stick to numbers. But about 4 years ago, I was called to do a presentation at a major financial institution, and they called me to do just like a small little, just like what we're doing here. A few guys looking at me, and then they decided they were going to stand on the floor, and they wanted me to describe a little bit about finance, a little about banking, networking, things like that. And what I noticed was they cut me off and told me that, do you know that you're going to be talking to a group of women? Because I'd never coached or spoken in front of a group of women before. Hence, I see why we have so many women here. And so when they said that you'll be speaking in front of a whole bunch of women, you need to tone it down. That was when I realized, why are you telling me to tone it down? So they described to me that women just don't have the confidence to actually do business the way that you're speaking of. So we would like for you to tone it down. Give them things about coupons and freebies and cake sales. You're talking about asset allocations and mergers and acquisitions and IRAs and that kind of thing. So they wanted me to tone it down. So right then and there, a little light bulb went off, and it was called the confidence factor for women. Why haven't we reached the same, I guess, business proportion of men? And there are a lot of statistics that say we're supposed to get there by 2020. But the way I see it and the way that I do business is I see it more like 2025, just so that we can have that same equilibrium. So what the confidence factor basically is it was kind of not only derived out of that, but this was in Lean In. And what they didn't do, they didn't visualize it. So I visualized it for you, where they talk about for every dollar a woman earns, and it goes down by racial demographics, that generally speaking, most women earn between 77 cents on every dollar that a man earns. It goes down to about 69 cents for African American women, and somewhere around 57 cents for Hispanic women. I fit somewhere between the African American and Hispanic. My mother is Hispanic. So it's like I didn't know how to relate to this, because I also was like, okay, this can't be true. This, because confident women, we don't think that this could ever be true. That doesn't make sense. But then in retrospect, when you actually read where it came from, it is actually true. And this actually came out the day of the 50th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act. And if you read Lean In, it's in there, but it's real subtle. Like, Cheryl didn't really want to get to it. She was really subtle about it. But we gave you the visual so you could understand that this is what we are making in 2014. This is where we are in business only. So I had a major problem with that, and I needed to know how to break that huge barrier that we were having. So I, of course, Carol Sankar decided to go to the library. And then I found out that there are 7 other countries where women perform financially at the same rate of men: Panama, Thailand, Ghana, Ecuador, Nigeria, Mexico, and Uganda. They perform at the same rate of men. And that whole study that I actually came up in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor also stated that there are more women millionaires and billionaires in these 7 countries than there are in America and Canada. So I had a problem with that because I'm a business consultant. I mentor businesses. I also work with the SBA every day. So I'm looking at multi-billion-dollar businesses, but it's true. Every corporation I've ever trained, every owner, every CEO has never been a woman. Hence, maybe I need to go to one of these countries and mentor one of these women. I've never met one. I've met the owners of several major Fortune 500 corporations within the SBA over the last few years, and I've never met any of them from here, and I've never met a woman who had been doing over $100 million a year. But my men, 100 million or better. So I'm like, okay, so the light bulb keeps going off, and I'm trying to figure out why we're not here. Why are we looking at third world countries that have women that are performing at this level? This obviously is saying something that we need to start paying attention to as women. This is really starting to kind of, for me personally, starting to get on my nerves. So I really wanted to figure out what this was all about. So within the same study, it talks about the fact that women don't have enough access to mentorship. We don't have enough access to entrepreneurial education. We don't have enough access to a lot of different ways that men have. But then if you actually think about it, and I'm not being funny, ladies, sometimes we don't ask. So it's not really that we don't have access, it's a matter of asking. Because within my years at the SBA, you can have the same phone line available to the same two people. One will call and say, I'll call you back, and one will say, I'm coming in 15 minutes. And it's usually the woman who will call you back, and the man will be there in 10 to 15 minutes, or you can book that appointment immediately. So I knew that this really had to be something that we had to continue to look at. And I'm not sure, just speaking from, again, I'm speaking from a business standpoint, but just speaking from a standpoint of what I've been able to see over the years, I'm not sure if it's that we don't have access to entrepreneurial education or if we don't demand entrepreneurial education. Having an MBA is great, but it's not necessarily entrepreneurial education. I think entrepreneurial education is firsthand learning, not necessarily coming into a classroom setting. Maybe that's just the non-academia in me. So then I keep continuing to go on to figure out what's the problem. What do we need to kind of fix this? And everything that we look at all the great women who are doing great things, and it says we're getting there. But when I look at the numbers that I have to do every single day, we're nowhere near where they tell us that we're going to be. So you're continuing to monetize and continue to magnetize this and look at it. So then I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the problem, ladies? What's the problem? Do we have a problem? Is there a sticking problem within us? And I always notice, I keep going back to the same thing. Is it entrepreneurial education? Is it something? And it's always come back to confidence. Even for me, for instance, I'm huge on Twitter. I'm a Twitter fanatic. Like, I can't not tweet every 10 seconds. Like, I'm thinking about you guys and I'm thinking about my next tweet right now. So I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. And usually women don't respond to my tweets. It's usually some man that's, super something. But if it's a motivational tweet, you're going to respond. But if it's a business tweet, I get chirps. So I was wondering what was I doing that was so wrong? And then I realized a lot of it has to do with confidence. So within this, there are a lot of studies that suggest that the main problem that we have, of course, number 3 being that we need more confidence. I didn't write this. I actually just copied and pasted it for you, but I got it from Intuit, as well as it's actually part of the SBA training that we do, that we need women, we need more confidence. We also need to be mentored. That's another issue where there's a huge gap supposedly within our learning curve, is that we don't have enough accessible mentors. But if you ask me, I don't think that we don't have accessible mentors. I don't think we have enough female accessible mentors. Oprah is wonderful, but she's on television. We need to have someone come to our level and be able to talk to us on our level, because I believe that men have a level that they can go to. They have that man that they can go and knock on the corner office and have a male conversation. But I think that we're outplaced, because here we are, you want to be at the corner office, but we don't have anybody to aspire at the corner office to. I don't know if you've ever met one. Please see me at the back. I've never met one. So I think that we just have a real distance between accessible mentorship and what we're trying to accomplish in business. Another thing in this list that I love is network. I'm just being honest. I network every day. But I noticed that we as women, we network in groups. Men network amongst themselves. So if you came with a friend, you and your friend are going to be walking around all day, as opposed to a man that could come in by himself and find a friend while he's here. We network in clusters. Hence, I no longer go to anything with my friends, because then I never get out of the circle. So access to networks where we're organically making connections based on the things that we want to accomplish, not necessarily with the people we already bring. And the other thing that is huge for me is actually getting certified. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe that's necessarily our issue, because I think that when we're overeducated, we go for every degree. Every time I see an Everest commercial, we're going for that. Then we go back to be a life coach, and we go back and get an MBA and 3 masters and 8 PhDs later. We're over-certified, and now we're overqualified for everything. I think it comes down to, if we could take out the certification and put that back into mentorship. I think being mentored organically by someone who's doing exactly what you want to do is going to be a great gift to you, to not have to go through all of this. But the main thing is, ladies, let's stop waiting for the perfect time. I see that a lot. We're waiting for the perfect website, the perfect business card, the perfect stationery, the perfect hairdo, the perfect outfit. perfection. I even had a perfect moment before I got here. I was debating whether a black dress or a suit, and I was like, I don't know if I should wear this. And I realized it's not perfect. You got dressed, just put it on, and just get it on. But perfection tells us that we have to wait for certain things. And even in my own business, what I have realized with other women who come into my company is called the Millionaire Mindset. What they do is they'll say, well, I can't develop that product because the website's not ready. Or I can't put that out there because the business card doesn't look right. So they're busy over perfecting the product and not actually mass perfecting what is actually available to them. So therefore, the perfection element is always a huge issue. So we have to get past this whole perfection thing. You guys may not agree, but we do have perfection issues, and I know I'm one of them. I suffered with that this morning. So here's how we get our confidence factor back. Emotional pricing, that copy and paste syndrome that we tend to suffer with instead of knowing our numbers. And I'll talk to you real quickly about how you know what your numbers are. It's called overhead plus productivity times 2 equals your price. So that's what I teach every single day, even when I teach at the university level. Productivity plus overhead times 2 equals price. So therefore, we can't say that, let's say you went to, I don't know, Whole Foods, and they're selling a bar of soap for $2.99, and you make soap, and now you want to charge $2.99. That may not be your price. You have to factor in your overhead, all of your overhead expenses, and your productivity is anything that allows your actual product to come out and be streamlined. So whether it's the bar that you have to use to cut, the knives, the fork, whatever you use, and then you multiply that times 2 and divide that by how many products or how many people you need to serve, that's your price. It always has been. But what happens is, because we as women are kind of detached from the mathematical part of the formula, we get caught up in the copy and paste or comparing ourselves to others in the same industry. So therefore, the emotional pricing is usually a major part of a flaw that we have. And even at the MBA level, they teach it something similar to that. I'm just giving you the condensed version. But your productivity costs are things like your receptionist, your virtual assistants, email access, constant contact, Infusionsoft, things like that. That really helps. Being here today is part of your productivity. Charge what you're worth. So after you figured out what your pricing is, then you start charging what you're worth, because now you know what those numbers equate to. You have no other reason but to charge what you're worth, because now you know your productivity, you know your overhead. You don't have to worry about whether you're charging fairly based on something we saw online. And because a lot of what I work with, especially when I do work with women, is in the luxury industry, I say it's not comparable to anything else. It's not comparable to the next person, so you have to charge what you're worth. Because I always say, what makes, True Religion jeans any better than the ones at Target? I don't know. They look blue to me, but there's something called True Religions, and I happen to love them. Next is ask bigger questions. And this is where I believe the mentorship comes into play, with getting mentors who feel like you, are accessible to you. We don't need another book from Barnes & Nobles or Amazon. We need certified, real mentors at our level that we can talk to, people who we can call when we have a sticking point, when we feel unconfident, when we feel lost, when we feel lonely, people we can stick to that will give us the ability for us to be able to say, well, all right, well, this is what you need to do. So we have to ask bigger questions, and our bigger questions have to be from a financial standpoint, especially in business. We have to ask those huge questions. The next is align yourself with proven leaders, and this really is where I have a huge issue. Sometimes we just align ourselves with people who are famous, because ladies, we are somewhat, we like surface value. I like a good Louis Vuitton handbag any day of the week, but we need proven leaders. We need to meet the people at that huge at CEO level and start really aligning ourselves with them. For instance, my personal mentor is a gentleman I met, I don't know, we were standing in a line at Walmart one day, and someone says, that's such and such. And when I looked over and I realized who he was, just a regular guy shopping at Walmart, I realized that this was a gentleman who I needed to know. Multi-billionaire real estate investor, huge in certain industries, and I really needed to know him. So we have to align ourselves with proven leaders. Do not accept excuses for payment. That's my arrogant way of making sure that I say that, people who give you, I don't have it right now, times are tough, One of those stories. We don't accept excuses for payment. Ladies, we sometimes get caught up in that. I know I hear it a lot, especially when I hear, I'm a mom, I'm a single mom, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Right now things are tough, but we can't accept excuses for payment. Unfortunately, this is the price that it is, and this is what we have to get done. And I think that this is a huge separating factor between us and men, because I know a man that will do the same thing as a woman, and he'll say, $5,000, and okay, well, I'll get back to you. We kind of, we start with the stories. We start with the over justification of the kids. I know somebody just did that to me just recently. I have kids. I have to work till 6. We have to stop accepting excuses for payment. I've never paid a bill with an excuse. I don't know about you guys, but I call my energy company all the time. They want cash, so we don't accept excuses for payment. Next thing is be authentic. Essentially what I'm trying to say is be arrogant, meaning be confident when you say that, I charge $10,000 an hour. Be arrogant about it. You don't owe anybody an explanation, because now that you know what you're worth, you have to be confident and own it. Believe you me, I get nervous just like everybody else, but when I say a price and I mean it, I may be swallowing a lot of saliva, but I get it. I get back up and I just figure out a way to say, it's a take it or leave it kind of policy. I'm not going to sit here and negotiate. So that's a part about being authentic. And then, of course, being selective about the company you keep is all about making sure not only about the alignment, but about the company that you decide to keep around you. I'm very meticulous about the inner circle. I talk about that a lot in my real life, about aligning yourself with 5 people who are wealthier than you, smarter than you, bolder than you, and braver than you. Every single day, I make sure and align myself with smarter people than I am. I don't come down any further. They're not bolder, more arrogant, more ignorant, more aggressive than me. I just don't align myself. I want to be with people who can know how to get in the door instead of gatekeepers, I want to be with decision makers. So that's where I decide to be selective. And then last but not least is the learning how to say no. Ladies, just say no. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Say no. Walk away. Don't feel guilty. You owe no one an explanation, and you will get more business. People will come back. Sometimes people have to go home and think about it. Don't justify yourself. Don't say yes to something that you know is less than what you believe you're worth. And so therefore, you will have your confidence factor back. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? You guys are good? My confident ladies? Okay. Well, rock your confidence factor. Proud of you. Thank you so much for having me.